Hey guys, what's going on? I hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here and welcome back to The Fragrance Well. So as you guys know, we have a lot of classifications for how we characterize a fragrance, so to speak. One of them is going to be projection and or sillage. Now, if you're kind of new to the community or new to collecting, you might think that these two things are the exact same thing. And I'm here to tell you that they're actually not. They're a little bit different. Projection, in short form, is basically the fragrance's ability to push off of your skin and, really kind of make its way to someone who's probably standing across the room, where sillage is the fragrance's ability to kind of linger in the air. Now, the two are not, completely separated from each other. I do think there is a little bit of a correlation between the two, but there's not necessarily a direct relationship, whether it be inverse or direct. It's not if you have more projection, you have less sillage, or vice versa. Sometimes you get a mix of both, sometimes you get more of one than the other. I'm gonna pretty much focus on that in today's video, projection versus sillage. I've got 3 fragrances for 3 separate categories. One is 3 fragrances that tend to project more so than they do leave a sillage or a scent trail. That's another term you might hear. 3 fragrances that leave more of a scent trail or leave sillage and maybe not project as much as they do that. And 3 fragrances that do both of them very, very well. So before we get started, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do like the content, and hit that bell icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get it started. So the first category, we're gonna focus on projection. These are 3 fragrances that project more so than they do leave a scent trail, in my opinion. Take this with a little bit of a grain of salt. There's not really a surefire way to test this, really, without like people kind of participating in your testing. I kind of have my ways of noticing that one might do one better than the other, but take it with a grain of salt. It's not an exact science. Your experience may differ. Obviously, fragrances wear different on different people. So to get it started, project more than they leave a scent trail. First up, we've got from the house of Salvatore Ferragamo, Uomo Signature. Salvatore Ferragamo's Uomo Signature. This fragrance projects like a monster. Can I smell it from here? No, I gotta spray it again. Projects like a monster. But you know what? The sillage on it is not terrible, but I do think the projection is much more noticeable than the sillage is. If you spray this on, especially if you spray it on heavily, they'll smell you from across the room before you even get there, okay? You don't have to be in the room for any amount of time before people ultimately smell it, nor do they have to come to you to smell it. They're gonna smell it off of you either way. So this is a very sweet, kind of coffee-like fragrance. The original Uomo is kind of tiramisu centered. I get less of the tiramisu characteristics with this fragrance and get more of just this overall kind of somewhat gourmand, very sweet and loud fragrance. It's a fragrance that'll definitely get you noticed pretty quickly because, like I said, a lot of projection off of this. Very sweet, very pleasing, kind of has that just mass appealing designer sweet quality to it. So, if you want a fragrance that, people are going to pick up off of you, especially if you spray a little bit heavy before you get there, essentially, this is a good one to go with. You definitely get good projection with this one. So once again, from the house of Salvatore Ferragamo, this is Uomo Signature. All right, the second one that is a great projector is from the house of Orto Parisi, and this is Bergamask. Orto Parisi's Bergamask. This is another one that, you don't even have to spray it super heavily. Spray it somewhat normal, and it will reach out and touch everyone's nose across the room. I actually have experienced this in the real world without even trying to test it. Walked into a restaurant, was standing at least 10 feet away from the people working there, and this is competing with the smells of the restaurant, and they picked this up off of me easily. So great projector here. I'm not really sure if this one kind of leaves a big scent cloud in the area where it has been for a long time, but I imagine it has at least some good sillage to it, but it is definitely a really good projector for sure. You don't have official notes for this fragrance, but it's pretty much a bergamot and musky fragrance. I think there might be some light aldehydes in here too, definitely some woody notes to go along with it as well. Honestly, a really nice mass appealing I don't know if I'd say mass appealing, but it's a pretty good compliment getter. People really like the way this smells in the air. If you smell it up close, might be a little bit funky. And if you smell it off the atomizer, unfortunately, it's pure brass. So you get this kind of metallic brass smell. So it's better to smell this one actually on skin. On skin. Yeah, I wouldn't say a tester strip is a better way to smell anything. But on skin, up in the air, people really enjoy this, and it projects very nicely. So once again, this is Oud Parisi's Bergamask. All right, and the last projector I'm going to feature in this video is from the house of Mason Francis Kurkdjian. This is Aqua, Celestia, Forte. Mason Francis Kurkdjian, Aqua, Celestia, Forte. This is a very bright, crispy, fresh fragrance. Has a little bit of a soapiness to it. Very strong key lime like accord in the beginning. Some really nice, bright and clean florals. Quite a bit of musk to it as well. This is a nice, long-lasting fragrance, so the performance is very good on it, and it has pretty decent projection. It's not gonna reach across the room per se, but it projects more so than it does leave a sillage, mainly because it just doesn't have a lot of notes in it that are going to, I think, make the sillage, really be very strong for a long time. Now the sillage doesn't suck on it. It's just, I would call it average. I would just say it projects more so than it does leave a scent cloud once the fragrance has, or at least you have left the area and the fragrance is just kind of sitting in the air. It can be picked up for a little while, but then it'll eventually fade as opposed to kind of sticking around for hours and hours and hours. But a really good performing fresh fragrance if you're interested in something like that. Smells really good. People love the smell of it. Like I said, you're just gonna smell very fresh, very clean, and very high quality cleanliness to it as well. Once again, from the house of Mason Francis Kurkdjian, this is Aqua Celestia Forte. All right, guys, we're moving on to the sillage category, the scent cloud category, the ability for the fragrance to linger in the air rather than just simply push off of your skin. Now, that's not to say these fragrances don't have some push. People can pick it up from a distance, but its superpower is the ability to kind of linger in the air and leave a cloud behind you, so to speak. First up, from the house of Nishane, Papilefiko. Nishane's Papilefiko. This is an extrait de parfum. I would say that you will notice with most extraits, not necessarily all of them, that they have that ability to really linger in the air because the oil concentration is a lot higher in them. And this is going to be a very balsamic, spicy fragrance. Has a little bit of clean aromatics in it by way of lavender, but it's primarily a lot of clean and fresh spices, cardamom, coriander, and has a balsamic and mossy-like quality for the dry down. Smells very great in the air, and this is another one where out in the field, so to speak, I have noticed that the sillage on it is very good. I've talked about recently how I wore this to work not too long ago, and a lot of people picked it up off of me, but a number of them picked it up off of me after I had left the area rather than me kind of approaching them. I had to get to them first, and then they smelled it, and then when I walked off, the scent cloud kind of stayed there. Wherever I was spending most of my time, that's where the fragrance was the strongest. It wasn't like pushing out across the room. Matter of fact, usually when I wear fragrances to work, that's not the type of fragrance I want. I don't want people to smell me from across the room. I don't mind if they smell me when they get close though. But yeah, I think this one has really excellent sillage and decent projection. It's not a super projector, but it's not like there's just none of it. So once again, from the house of Nishane, this is Papilefiko. Next up, coming from the house of Dior, this is Dior Homme 2020. Dior Homme 2020. So this one here is that fresh, clean, modern, woodsy fragrance that is just very masculine, very classy, a great everyday fragrance that is just super pleasant. And to me, not a massive projector, as you would pretty much expect from an Homme style fragrance, and I think a lot of people think that the sillage on this is not really that great either. It's pretty average. I disagree. I think this has the ability to leave a pretty decent scent cloud, and another one that's field tested. I was doing some work installing my equipment somewhere a long time ago. There was another person from my company doing another part of what we do, and they were far away from me, and they just kind of walked where I had been walking back and forth for a long time, and they picked up the fragrance, and I was far away from them, so they didn't pick it up off me directly. They smelled it in the air, And I couldn't believe that they actually picked it up, because I thought at the time that, like, you know, at this point, the fragrance, you pretty much had to be right on me to smell it. No, she picked it up in the air. So I think this one actually does have the ability to leave a very nice scent cloud. Does have the isogamma super in it to give it some a little bit more longevity, if you will. So I think the fragrance does have decent longevity to it. And yeah, it's not going to be a massive projector. It's not going to fill a room per se, but it does leave a nice scent trail for it. So once again, from the house of Dior, this is Homme 2020. Good one for leaving a pretty good scent trail or sillage. All right, and the last one for the sillage category, coming from the house of Francesca Bianchi, this is The Dark Side. Francesca Bianchi's The Dark Side. This is another one, come on, focus. This is another one that is an extrait de parfum. So like I said, you can often expect extrait de parfums to have pretty decent sillage at least. Now, this one here, I will say this much, is the darkest fragrance I think I got in my fragrance cabinet. I mean, as soon as you smell it, you just think super dark, almost damp, even musty, haunted house almost even. I mean, like a place with old wooden bookshelves and a bunch of old books on it. It doesn't necessarily smell bad. It just kind of gives off that vibe, but this is definitely one that I would consider to be a collector's fragrance, collector's enthusiast, a heavy enthusiast, not someone who's new. So let me just put that out there before I talk about it. But I do want to just highlight the fact that this has pretty strong sillage. It's a very dark, resinous, somewhat spicy fragrance. It's just mostly just really deep resins. That's kind of the entire nature of the fragrance. So it's not going to be for everyone. But the way I kind of know, or at least I think I know, that this has really good sillage, I like to go into one of the rooms in my house that's not used and spray new fragrances. And often what I'll notice is if they have really good projection, and I close the door. Once I close the door, if they have really good projection, I can still smell them even though the door is closed. If they have really, really good sillage, I can walk in there like the next day and still smell the fragrance. This one was one of those. It was at least 24 hours later, walked into the room and still could smell this clear as day. Even though I had sprayed other fragrances, I noticed that this is the one that's lingering the strongest. So this one has a good sillage on it, and I have worn it, and I did notice that kind of has this cloud around it, just kind of sticks around. It doesn't project super far, but it does just really create a strong scent cloud around you, and it lasts for a long time. So once again, from the house of Francesca Bianchi, wrapping up the sillage category, this is The Dark Side. All right, guys, we're on to the final category. These are fragrances that, as far as I'm concerned, they got great projection, they got great sillage. So if you just want a fragrance that is going to be noticeable to people, these are some that might work for you. So first of all, this is from the house of Menthol. We've got Oud Tobacco. Menthol's Oud Tobacco. If you know anything about, not all of them, but a number of Menthol fragrances, many of them are going to be strong projectors and great scent trail or sillage fragrances. So this one here, name's a little bit misleading. I don't really pick up a whole lot of oud in the fragrance. It's probably just a really subtle supporting note. You do get tobacco in the fragrance when it really dries down, or at least I do to my nose, but it's primarily this kind of lemony, spicy, tonka bean fragrance more than anything. Tons of tonka bean in this, and you have this citrus fruits in the top, and a spice called sumac, which is like a lemony spice without the tartness to it, and I think there's some cumin in this as well. But this one, when you spray it, it immediately takes over the space, projects very far, and it lingers for a long time, so I do not want to spray it. Luckily, it's kind of still on the atomizer so I can smell it, because I like to smell fragrances while I talk about them. But yeah, this one definitely projects and leaves a scent trail. So once again, from the house of Menthol, Oud Tobacco. All right, next up, coming from the house of Jean-Paul Gaultier, we have got Male Le Parfum. Jean-Paul Gaultier's Male Le Parfum. This is another fragrance line, at least with the ones that are a little bit more cold weather oriented, where they all project and have great sillage. This one's no different. This is giving you the Le Male DNA with a lot of iris. So you got the lavender, got a lot of iris. They kind of removed the mint from this one. This one kind of has a little bit of a spicy kick to it. It's no stranger to having a lot of projection. It will push off the skin very easily, and it will leave a lingering scent cloud once you have left the area. Every time I spray this in a room, I can smell it away from the room, and when I walk into the room, hours and hours later, it's still just kind of hanging there. So projection and sillage, you will definitely get this one from this iteration of the Le Male line, and like I said, many of the other ones, primarily the cold weather, or let's call it date night centered ones. So once again, from the house of Jean Paul Gaultier, Le Male Le Parfum. All right, and last but not least, this is coming from the house of Emporio Armani, and this is Stronger With You, Absolutely. Stronger With You, Absolutely, from Emporio Armani. And this one here, same thing. Projects very nicely, even though it's not the strongest projector in the Stronger With You line. I can't talk, but still projects very nicely and definitely leaves a scent cloud. You spray this in a room, you come back, you're gonna still smell it there. This is a spicy, boozy, kind of gourmand fragrance, primarily known to have the, is it chestnut? Yeah, chestnut, or I think it's chestnut. In this one in particular, they say it's a note of marron glace, which is like candied or sugar-coated chestnuts. So it goes in that direction, giving it a little bit of a twist. Does have a chocolatiness to it, in my opinion. There is patchouli in the base of this. And like I said, it has that booziness, a little bit of lavender too to give it a little bit of a freshness, but definitely projects very nicely. Kind of synonymous with what the line is known for, at least from Intensely On. And yeah, it'll linger in the air too once you spray it. Good crowd pleaser, definitely a compliment getter, very enjoyable designer scent. And you want projection, you want sillage, you'll get it from this. Or you should get it from this, you know. It varies from person to person, but I think most people can agree that this one has those qualities. So once again, from the house of Emporio Armani, this is Stronger With You, Absolutely. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for this video. That was 9 fragrances that either featured projection, featured sillage, or feature a little bit of both or a lot of both. And I hope I kind of gave an idea as to what the differences are between the two if you aren't already familiar with that. Leave a comment down below. Is projection and sillage something that's super important to you? Do you prefer one over the other by chance? Hey, let me know. I'm curious to see what you guys think. I appreciate you guys watching all the way until the end. Remember to be well and smell well, and I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.